Hey guys, Fantastic Mr. S here again, and you're watching Dangerously Rockin' Reviews! Okay, this album totally opened my eyes to things. Things that have, well, never occurred to me before. That bands who have made such great material in the past could take such a lame musical direction later on in their career. And there is no further evidence of this than the Guns N' Roses album, Chinese Democracy. But, before we talk about the album, let's talk a bit about its history first. Guns N' Roses started working on Chinese Democracy as far back as the early 90s when Slash and Duff McKagan were still in the band. But, because they couldn't get along with lead singer Axl Rose, the stuff they'd worked on never materialized. Slash and Duff both quit the band, leaving Axl as its only remaining founding member. The group then spent the rest of the decade out of the public eye, but they re-emerged in the 2000s with an entirely new lineup other than Axl. At this time, work resumed on the new album, but once again, it went through several more delays for most of that decade too because of the band's constant touring and lineup changes among all the other crap. But finally, after being in developmental hell for 14 years, 14 years! It saw the light of day in 2008. And was it worth such a long wait? Oh boy, this is not gonna be easy. When I heard that Guns N' Roses was gonna be releasing another album soon, I was excited for it. These guys are like my third favorite band, and I was expecting that it would sound just like their first three albums. What it sounded like instead totally took me by surprise, but not entirely in a good way. First of all, this doesn't sound like Guns N' Roses, it sounds closer to Linkin Park and 9 Inch Nails. Second of all, is that autotune? Is Axl Rose using autotune? Axl Rose, the guy who sang Welcome to the Jungle, one of my all-time favorite songs off of Appetite for Destruction, one of my all-time favorite albums, now using autotune? No! 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 Just no! 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 But putting that aside, there is some stuff I like about it, along with the stuff I don't. For example, the lyrics in most of the songs are spot on. Axl Rose has always written some great lyrics, and the ones on Chinese Democracy are no exception. For example, its title track and the track Sorry have some especially cool lyrics like sitting in a Chinese stew, as well as I'm sorry for you, not sorry for me. To me, those phrases feel very Guns N' Roses-like. Other songs I enjoyed on the album include Shackler's Revenge, Better, Rad and the Bedouins, and of course, Street of Dreams. They still have their problems, but they hold up okay. Now, Street of Dreams is one of the more interesting tracks off the album, because it's like the Frankenstein of Guns N' Roses. What do I mean by that? Well, it combines the old elements of Guns N' Roses with the new elements, but not entirely in a cohesive way. You know I tried so hard to make you though it's what you planned as much is true. Also, the guitar solos are still awesome as hell. I'm not kidding. Most of them sound like they could have been played by Slash. But since it was Robin Fink, Buckethead, and Bumblefoot who played them instead, you can hear tinges of their own stuff in there too. Everything else about this album, I can take or leave. Why? Well, again, it's the industrial metal sound and Axl Rose's frequent use of autotune that ultimately make it suffer. And the sound's not really anything new. I've heard this like a bajillion times before. It's been done with Linkin Park, 9 Inch Nails, it's been done with Marilyn Manson, even Rob Zombie's done it before. Look, I know Axl is trying to do something different with Chinese Democracy, and I get that. There are a lot of bands whom, as they get older and their careers progress, they want to try to experiment with new sounds, they don't want to repeat themselves. I get that. And I've learned that after listening to this album. But it is important to also keep that aesthetic in there, to stay true to the sound that made you so recognizable to begin with. It's not to say that I don't recognize Axl and his band on this album, but if they hadn't lost touch with their Appetite for Destruction roots, then this record could have been a whole lot better. Or if they're going to do material that's radically different, then why couldn't they have just released those songs under a different moniker? Hell, it could have been an Axl Rose solo effort. He could have just gone down the Eddie Vedder route where he released the Into the Wild soundtrack under his own name. He did get a lot of awesome songs out of it. The bottom line is this. While Chinese Democracy isn't a bad album as its own entity, it's just not worthy of bearing the Guns N' Roses name. And it's a shame, because I felt like it had so much potential to be a great Guns N' Roses album. It features some great songwriting and musicianship, but it got severely let down by that industrial metal sound of theirs. Kinda hard to believe this took over a decade to make. And I know Axl and company can still be Guns N' Roses, even without the original lineup. Because my brother and I have seen them in concert before. And for all you purists out there who are like, it's not Guns N' Roses without Slash, maybe it's time you took a step away from your computer, just for a moment, and just rethink your lives over, okay? But still, as far as Guns N' Roses albums go, Chinese Democracy would have to be my least favorite. I think the problem lies with it being released under the Guns N' Roses name, without their signature sound intact. But who knows? Maybe someday they'll release a follow-up that's actually worthy of their name. And I'd love to see that happen. But until then, I'm just gonna stick with the songs that are, well, Guns N' Roses. Sorry, Axl Rose. I love you, but you're getting an epic average this time.
Epic average.
I'm the fantastic Mr. S, and you're watching Dangerously Rockin' Reviews!